Welcome back. Now, the United Nations Refugee Agency has expressed grave concern over the safety and security of civilians as fighting intensified in the eastern parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The UNHCR says that more than 400,000 people have been displaced by these clashes. M23 rebels took control of Goma, heightening the threat of a full-scale regional war. Now, 9 South African soldiers were also killed on Friday. The conflict has been raging since 2012 and has led to many killed and thousands displaced. Now, to help us better understand the situation in the DRC, we join now virtually by an expert in African security governance and South African military and foreign policy, Professor Thomas Mandrup, who is an associate professor with the Royal Danish Defence College and with SIGLA at Stellenbosch University. Professor Mandrup, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina. Good morning to the viewers, and thank you for having me.
Perhaps a good place to start would be just to take, a bit of a historical context here and look at the dimensions, the local dimensions to this conflict with the M23, also the governments at play, and how all of this came to be.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it is a conflict that goes years back. Some even argue it goes back to the independence in the 1960s, the first Congolese war. But let's say that starts around the Rwanda genocide in 1994, and the influx of 3 million people from Rwanda at the time. At that time, it destabilized an already unstable Zaire, and one of the rebel groups that was created at the time was the remnants of the people responsible for the genocide, the FDLR. They're still active in that area. They have cooperated with the changing Congolese governments, and they've been present there. They have the goal of destroying Rwanda. Rwanda has since then argued that they would have a list of people they want to arrest, and they want to disarm the FDLR and get the responsible people arrested. At the same time, you have since the mid-18th century, you had an influx of Kinyarwanda-speaking, that is Hutu and Tutsi, ethnic Tutsis, immigrating from Burundi and Rwanda into that area of the Kivus, where the conflicts are going on at the moment. They are a minority, but it's always, why I'm mentioning it is, when they had the new constitution in 2006 in Congo, there was strong political powers that wanted to not recognize them as Congolese citizens because they say they were newcomers to the area. So there's a question of land here and also minority rights in that area. Current conflict, one could say that Rwanda has played a very critical and negative role in that area. Uganda has done the same. It been involved in the conflicts ever since, on and off. The M23 started out as a group called the CNDP that took Goma in 2008. Then they integrated into the army, went back out, took Goma as M23 back in 2013, where the South African then sent in the troops of the Force Intervention Brigade as part of the UN. And then they were disarmed, and in 2021, they came back, supported by Rwanda, and that's been documented by the UN group of experts, so supported by Rwanda, and have then been ongoing with this current civil war, and whereas now has escalated into a situation where they once again have seemingly has taken Goma. So one can say it's a very, very complex situation. One of the key issues here is all the fundamental root causes of the conflict has not been solved. There is this tension between the ethnic groups internally. There's on the geostrategical level, you have the 2009 peace agreement where minority rights was secured between Congo's government and Rwanda, and the local minority groups. It's never been implemented, which is one of the reasons why M23 continuously comes back. And then into the mix, we have the whole situation about natural resources, where especially this key area of Kivu is has a very high percentage of precious ground, what are called mining materials like coltan and cobalt and stuff like that, which of course also has is an incentive for some of the neighboring countries in that. So there's a big, very complex situation where there's a lot of political issues here at play, and where the regional powers, the regional states, in changing forms and all that has played a very negative role, where Congolese government has not shown any will or capacity to actually implement that. And then you have the UN force of 12,000 troops there as well on top of that.
Professor Mandrup, to the root causes and, of course, the presence of mineral wealth in that particular area, enter foreign powers, multinational corporations. How have they added to this conflict?
Again, I think the old dictator Mobutu from the Zaire, he was notoriously corrupt, and there was he has this saying that to be corrupt, you need someone to corrupt you. So I think that's an important point, that in all the precious metals being present in that area, the rebel groups and the local population and subsistence miners, they cannot eat that. So you need someone to buy it. And that is a great part of what is going on at the moment, and that you've had Rwanda has a large coltan export, Uganda exporting gold from that area. You have government officials in Kinshasa being heavily involved, having their private militias and all that, being heavily involved in some of the resource extraction in that area as well. Then you have the Chinese and others into the mix. So when you look at your cell phone, like mine here, there's coltan in that, and most likely some of it comes from Congo, and somehow it managed to get into the market and into the production of our cell phones and all that. So it's a very complex environment, and there's been a lot of international focus on that for years, but it's very difficult to stop, especially because these countries are involved in that, and they earn money from that, and political actors in Congo itself earns money from that. So it seems there's been little will and a capacity to actually do something about it.
And as you said, this conflict goes back many years. What would you say are the main obstacles to achieving lasting peace in this region?
Yeah, one can say that one of the complex situations is that right now it is estimated that we have around 100 plus different kind of rebel groups. So it's not just the M23 or the ADF, which is an Islamist group operating up in north or the border to Uganda. It's a lot of other ethnic groups. You have on the Congolese side, you have the Vasilendo, you have the FDLR, as I mentioned earlier, the Hutu former genocidaires, and others operating together with the SADC force in South Africa and Burundi, tacitly. They say officially not, but they are in practice doing that. And then on the other side, you have the APC and M23 and others, political actors that are actually trying to all that. But when you're asking me what is the obstacles here, I think the first layer of obstacle is that you need to get the parties to talk to each other. You've had two peace negotiations processes going on. You've had the Nairobi process, which included some of the militias and rebel groups. That has been suspended. It's not going on at the moment. And then you had the Angolan-led negotiation between Congo and Rwanda, the Luanda process, where you had a ceasefire being signed back in July last year. They were supposed to meet here in December. It was cancelled, and then you saw the offensive and all that fighting picking up again. I think the biggest problem here is that Congo do not want to talk to M23, and the argument is they say M23 is not a real group. It's really controlled by Rwanda. If Rwanda was not there, it would not exist, which is, of course, is not true. It is also locally based. It's true that Rwanda is part of that. So you're not going to get out of it somehow to talk to each other and try to find a political settlement to this and all that. And they get back to that is you need to disarm the FDLR, because whether they are a strong military force or not, that's not important, because it provides an excuse for Rwanda to get involved all the time, because they can say the former genocidaires are cooperating with the Congolese government and under the auspices of them. So there's this kind of tension which are there. And then we have all the other issues, you have this saying in the Congo, in Eastern Congo, the truth of the yoke. The truth of the yoke means that local Denande and other big ethnic group in that area would always, if you ask them when you're there, they would say, yeah, but the truth and the conflict there is caused by the people from the outside. The people from the outside are not just Rwanda and Burundi and the others. It's actually also the Kinyarwanda-speaking people that have been there since the mid-18th century. Because they're seen as newcomers. So that's also part of that. So you have all these questions around land, access to land, political control, and also with the securing of minority rights and also the citizenships, which is actually put into everyone who's lived in Congo since 1960s in the constitution are Congolese citizens, but it's not accepted on the ground as well. So you have a lot of tensions, a lot of issues. And then, of course, you have the minerals on top of that, which, of course, is something you need to solve. But initially, you need to talk. And I think Thabo Mbeki said it yesterday quite well. There's no military solution to this. There's a political solution, and that's where we are at the moment.
So we heard that there are efforts afoot to try and at least get Presidents Tshisekedi and, of course, Kagame to speak. Whether that actually will happen remains to be seen. And Rwanda has, of course, been one of the key protagonists here. They've been accused of fueling this conflict, also by allegedly deploying thousands of their own troops and also supplying weapons to support the M23. So looking at that, again, how do you get these people to talk? And as you said, with the DRC not recognizing the M23 rebels, how do you get to a lasting solution without speaking to all the key protagonists?
I think one should see the current offensive by M23 and Rwanda. It's estimated that Rwanda has around 4,500 troops in there. Now they've most likely got more, but that was what they estimated in December. But back to your question, I think a good thing is that Rwanda, with this offensive, have created a situation where the Congolese government hasn't got a choice. Because if it's true that they've taken Goma, and of course there's still reports of fighting going on, all that, but let's put that aside. But they've changed the situation on the battlefield. They have momentum, they have the initiative, and the Congolese cannot respond. And right now, because they control the airport, you cannot get reinforcements in. Again, we have to remember that in that part of the Congo, and I've been on patrol several times in that area, in rainy season, all that, the roads are just basically impassable. So it takes a long time to do, and the terrain is quite difficult to operate in. So suddenly you're in a situation where it's very difficult to retake the Goma and actually sustain your troop. Mobutu had the same problem back when the rebels started back in 1996 and all that. So that's one situation. And that means, why is that important? It's more important because when you go to the negotiation table, which is supposed to happen today, the East African community under President Ruto from Kenya, who is the chairman at the moment, has called a meeting between Tshisekedi and Kagame, and apparently they have agreed to meet up. Also, Ramaphosa spoke to Kagame yesterday. They agreed that there was a need for an immediate ceasefire. And all that, but it means that Rwanda suddenly has a fait accompli on a very, very strong bargaining chip towards the Congolese government because they are in control. And again, we have to remember that the international community right now is very, very different from what it was back in 2013 when the FIB took out the M23, where we have a Trump government in the US threatening everybody around, including my own country, Denmark, and Greenland and all that. But also we have Russia attacking Ukraine in this war of aggression, and again, imperialist actions and all that. So suddenly Rwanda is seeing its moment that actually can go in and try to push a situation there, which of course is going to help them get what they want. They want to actually get the situation and get not acceptance of M23, but find a final solution and force the government of Congo's hand, again, get the FDLR disarmed and all that.
Professor Mandrup, thanks so much. As always, great insights there. Professor Thomas Mandrup, an expert in African security governance and South African military and foreign policy, and also associate professor with the Royal Danish Defence College and with SIGLA at Stellenbosch University, helping us understand and unpack the conflict in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo.